uppercut, uppercut, sonic boom! Well, hello there, humans of his earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. I'm just going to let this one go. This is the M416. This is easily the most popular gun in the history of PUBG Mobile, and it remains the most popular gun in the history of PUBG Mobile. And it's interesting to look at the M416 from more than just the aspect of its performance in game. A lot of what is associated with this gun is tied into the cosmetic of the game and the actual feel of the game. For me, PUBG was all about PUBG PC when I first started playing it. It was that feel that I was looking for. The snap of Choco Taco and Shroud just lean peeking a Car 9 in bolting someone in the dome as they crossed a field, or you know, it was the barrel, and it was that kind of a feel. The M16 being used on the regular. When I came to play PUBG Mobile, that meant that the M416, I didn't really care. Like, I liked it. It was good. It was clearly a good weapon, but it wasn't the perfect gun. It wasn't like the gun that I associated with my heroes. I mean, that's a strong thing for a grown man to call Choco Taco. I just think he's a good bloke who's very, very good at PUBG. But I digressed. For the majority of the player base, particularly the younger players who've watched PMCO and seen things happen, the M416 is the gold standard. The M416 and this skin here, the Glacial skin, is for the longest time was the absolute must-own skin of PUBG Mobile. There were whole threads on Reddit about getting the Glacial skin, and there was a whole, you know, like almost like a subculture of, why is that clip in here? That's an over-under of people who just lived for that one gun. And if you've played TDMs, you'll know that people run this in TDMs. M416s run in TDMs. And if you go to the cheer park, well, at least the old cheer park, you'd see people lying down at the end of a ditch just putting clip or magazine after magazine into a target. Now, it is obviously good at certain things. I mean, you can see here, that's like 200 meters away, and they ain't saving their buddies because I just knocked another one, and they're all getting wrecked, and that's not going to help you either. It's an incredibly effective weapon. Where is it right now, though, in the pantheon of PUBG Mobile weapons? Because I think for all the fact that it is probably the most storied weapon in the game, that it is probably the most used weapon in the game. And I think I'm going to do a video on that too. I'm going to break down some numbers on that. And I'm not going to let you in on how I'm going to do that. I'm just going to tell you about it later. It's not really the most overpowered weapon in the game. And I think that's a very, very rare thing. Most games I've played, particularly PC, people find the best gun and run it. And what people in PUBG Mobile have done is find the most versatile gun and run it, because it really is an odd one. If you could only run one gun in the whole game, then the M4 would probably be even more popular, because it obviously is able to cover off on a variety of different engagement modes. And it is very, very accurate, and it has very, very manageable recoil. But it's not incredibly fast firing. It's not incredibly heavy in terms of damage. It's not it doesn't do special things like the AKM's limb damage. It's great at suppressing like this. But it's not just great at suppressing because it does big damage. I'm going to talk about this a little bit here. The M416 has a reasonable rate of fire. Certainly nothing special. And you may think that's a weakness, but I think it's actually a big part of the M416's continued popularity. When you're trying to spray at someone and they're a long way away, a super fast firing gun like the AUG will often miss the opportunities to readjust before it's out of ammo. Whereas the M416, it's easier to control the recoil because there's a bigger gap between the rounds themselves. If you're wondering what that gap is, an M416 fires a round every no, people hate this, but every 0.094 seconds. That equates to 638 rounds a minute. The AUG, for instance, fires around every 0.077 seconds, or 779 rounds a minute. Now that's nearly 25% quicker in terms of time between rounds. And that means that by the time you've adjusted your recoil with the M416, you're losing less rounds dragging it on target. Like if you pre-fire a corner and come around that corner, then you've fired 5 or 6 rounds. With an AUG, you've fired an awful lot of rounds. It's also got a very gentle hip fire for an AR. And you put all this together and you just have a really noob-friendly gun. And that's exactly what it is. It's incredibly noob-friendly. It's funny because it's almost like the AKM's kind of performance in real life, where it's renowned and loved for its ability to, basically be buried in the dirt and come back up and fire again. And for PUBG Mobile, the M416, it might not win all the engagements, but it's gonna give you the best switch weapon you could possibly have across anywhere from 0 to 300 meters. I mean, that's pretty wild. You can put a 2x on it or a red dot and still cane people at 150 meters very, very comfortably. There's less distance between it now, though, for me, and most of the other guns that you can find in game. There are notable exceptions. Like the DP28 was closer to a gun that I'd have on a Switch than the M416 for the longest time, and it's now less clear that the DP is better because its bullet speed has been so drastically nerfed. The Scar L and the AUG for me used to be guns I would always love to run on the Switch, but as other guns have got better, it's become less and less necessary for me to have something that can handle CQC as well as a Scar L needs to. Like this kind of range here with an M416, great, but the Scar L is better at that range. Like it just is. It's not better at that range though, and that's the key. You lose nothing once you get outside of about 35, 40 meters with the Scar L, with the M416, whereas you do lose a lot with the Scar L. God, the M249 is horrible. And I've had chats with people who still want this gun nerfed. And I don't think you really need to nerf it anymore. I think there are so many other good options that you can have a more unique playstyle without having to run the noob cannon. I just don't understand why the rest of the player base doesn't try them. Now, that might sound like, why do you want everyone to run the same stuff you run? Or why do you want everyone to run different guns? And I don't. I'm happy for them to have their own little niche. I just think that the game is better when there is more enforced selection, where you have to have situations where XYZ is better than XBZ. And when you're running an M416, like if you watch the kill feed, go and watch the kill feed. Tell me how many times you've seen M416 in the kill feed. It's boring. And I don't run it most of the time because it is boring. I've been running it lately because I did eventually want to have a bit of a commentary on it and talk about it. But some of these clips are very old. And that's because I just don't run it a huge amount. Is there anything they need to fix with it? Well, I think it's more about the state of the game. I'd rather see the M416 used like this, where at range, you have to tap fire it. And it's very, very effective. But if you don't tap fire, like you spray, then it takes a damage drop. Not even a recoil. I don't think people understand because they don't want their toys taken away. But if you turned this gun into something where you didn't spray it all the time and you tap fired it, I think it would bring a really lovely nuance to the game. I think it would, if you had tap firing taking less damage drop than spraying. I mean, and people say that's not realistic. Well, none of this is realistic, guys. Come on. Let's get a grip on ourselves. This is about balancing a game. It's about balancing a game so that it's challenging, but it's not boring. Anyway, I welcome your feedback and your ideas on this wonderful weapon, the M416. Look forward to talking to you soon. And until next time, stay safe in the battlefield. Au revoir, amigos.